My apologies. All right, the audio should be good. Let me just check. I had something pressed on the, I think, mic that muted it. So, sorry. Let's check that again. Chat, let me know if the audio is good now. Um, yeah, I'll have to redo the intro because I accidentally hit something on my mic that muted it. Usually I have the thing turned off on here, but it was on the mic this time. But there we go. Audio is working. Awesome to hear. Anyways, restarting the intro. Um, Tonight is a emergency slash major news coaster time stream. Really, the first time I've done something like this. I've obviously done reactions in the past to announcements, but not like a live stream, like just this impromptu. So appreciate those of you who are able to join on a Thursday night. Of course, with the stream, with the announcement of Six Flags selling 7 parks to EPR properties, that is going to be the primary topic of discussion today. We even have at least one guest, if not potentially 2 guests, that are going to be joining tonight later on during a call to give their thoughts as well on this news. But of course, that's going to be what we're discussing. We'll also do some Q&A and guess the coaster as well. So I'll get us started with some first Q&A, buy or sell. Probably have a pretty abbreviated one, like probably like 5 minutes. And then I'll go straight into the kind of background of this Six Flags sale and my personal thoughts on it. And then I will start, I will bring in our first guest at that point and we'll go from there. So that is going to be the plan. Hope y'all are doing well today. Curious your thoughts, feeling enchanted tonight. Yeah, for different people, that's gonna mean different things, but there you have it. The whole Enchanted Park saga has been crazy for anyone who's followed on Instagram. Like I was kind of all over it yesterday with the Instagram account and finding all the connections and stuff that I thought like legitimized it, only for the account runners to seemingly pull a fast one and make it seem like it was a troll account, by like unfollowing all the parks and like following these random Disney accounts and like Roblox, and I'm like, okay, so this is a troll. But even that night, I didn't want to throw the idea out there, but I was looking around at stuff. I'm like, I'm not fully convinced this account is fake. There were a few things I was looking at that I was just like, um, stuff is not lining up, especially because people found the other social media accounts with all the links and stuff, and I'm like, this seems really weird. And lo and behold, today, that account was real. All that information that we had kind of gathered from that and the trademarks was, well, the trademarks obviously legitimate, but also from the account, plus LeBron. So obviously pretty crazy last like 24, 48 hours, just kind of trying to decipher everything. But it was pretty crazy. In relation to the sale, you notice that LeBron will be operated by, I believe the company is called LeBron Operations Inc. Um, yeah, and it's kind of weird. It hasn't been outright stated that it's being operated by Premier, but the person who is heading the company that is operating LeBron is indeed the CEO from Premier. So I'm pretty much under the opinion it basically is going to be operated by them, and it's just kind of some weird like subsidiary thing they have to do to just because of the whole weird like structure of like how that park like owning it with like the Montreal lease. We discussed it way back when with when I had JB Thrills on for actually the stream where we talked about like what Six Flags parks were on the chopping block. I think a lot of that there's a little bit that didn't age so well, but there's a decent bit of that I think did. And I did talk about like how difficult it was going to be to get rid of LeBron just because of the whole unique lease that Montreal has with the park, but they were able to work something out. But I'm guessing this has to do with that. So it's pretty interesting though, for sure. Yeah, no, this is 100% what happened. And again, I kind of thought this yesterday. I did not want to throw it out on what's it called? I did not want to throw it out like on Instagram like publicly that hey, I just still think this has a chance of being real just because I'm like I feel like people would have been like I'm just like denying the truth that it was that I got fooled and everything, but internally I was telling a few people like hey, I think there's a chance that this is still real. So um, it is pretty funny how it all worked out. So um, but yeah, too many things lined up. Although I did come to find out that the whole EPR connection was like figured out back in January, back on the Park fans forums. So that connection wasn't necessarily new, but I don't think a lot of people knew about that. But the ad agency, I was like, there's no way that like the ad agency that works with Enchanted, the Wild Safari water park that IAM already owns. I'm like, there's no way they would follow an account that's impersonating like one of their top clients. I'm like, the repercussions wouldn't be that devastating, I feel like, but it's just something that like you wouldn't do that. So that one was, I think, probably the biggest like kind of smoking gun to that account's legitimacy. So, um, but yeah, that was all pretty crazy. Let's see. So it makes sense for LeBron to basically have a holding company that operates the park on the city's behalf. Yeah, I mean it makes sense. I think just given some of the like the whole like weird stuff of the lease that it certainly would make sense. Um, yes, this is something that I do have questions about. What does this mean for Darien Lake and Frontier City? Obviously, those being EPR owned parks that Six Flags already operates. I do think it's a little, I mean, a lot of parks moving pieces, so maybe not like, maybe it does make sense that they didn't move off of those quite yet, but I gotta imagine that something could be coming with that just because it's like you already have, you've already worked with EPR to move off your other parks. I'm guessing they probably want to get out of those contracts. I would have to think something probably is potentially in the works or could happen. But I guess we have to wait a little bit for that, or maybe not. We'll kind of have to wait and see. But I expect they're probably going to move off of them. The two dry parks, I believe, are the only remaining parks in the Six Flags chain that didn't get a survey. So I'm pretty sure we got that like that's sorted out. So I think that'll get sorted out. Speculation on name changes after 2026. I would have to think that the Legacy Cedar Fair parks are probably gonna stay with their names. They might do like a little change or like add something to it, but I don't really see them like going too crazy and straying that far away from what they already have. Great Escape, I think they can kind of also again just kind of lean back into just Great Escape being the primary name. If they want to add like something else to it, do that. Six Flags St. Louis is really the one they're gonna have to get pretty creative with. I have absolutely no idea what they're gonna do for that. They could go with like an Enchanted something or other St. Louis. I don't know if I would necessarily go with a name like that. I think they're gonna have to get kind of creative with that park because I mean, it's been known as a Six Flags park, well, pretty much for its entirety of existence, and obviously Six Flags St. Louis has been the name, and you can't really reuse much of that except like St. Louis. So they're gonna have to kind of sort that out. They do have the trademarks already there if they want to. I would still be pretty surprised if they actually do like Enchanted parks that are like Enchanted like insert name. I would, I think that's kind of tacky if they actually end up going that route. So I would hope that they don't go that route. Let's see, a few more things coming in here. It's off topic, but what's my reaction to Tormenta rampaging run? I mean, obviously the progress of it. It's been exciting to see huge new Giga Coaster there. I think we've previously covered it on here. I'm still of the opinion like it'll be an awesome addition for Over Texas as far as like just selfishly like like personally for me, like my personal excitement for it, it's not as high as others, as definitely for a lot of other people, but I'm sure it'll be a great ride, and definitely it's gonna have a presence. It's gonna be quite popular. I love that they are incorporating a new mini area in their Mexico and Spain area as well. Adding a new restaurant that should be good. So I also like a lot of the other aspects that's like kind of coming with that ride edition as well. That's not necessarily just the coaster. But I mean, it'll be exciting. Definitely curious to see the reactions, the first reactions of that coaster. Also, kind of curious if it'll have B&M rattle. That would be less than ideal on a ride of that scale. So, hopefully, fingers crossed, that's not an issue. Yeah, Six Flags St. Louis was one of the original three Six Flags parks, so that is, of course, a really interesting aspect of this. Same with Valley Fair being, part of the Cedar Fair name. Now that's gone. It's really, we are in a new era for Six Flags, and hopefully it's good. I am optimistic for Six Flags on their side of things with this move. We'll discuss the actual parks as well here, but I think Discovery Kingdom back to Marine World. Well, let's not get too ahead of ourselves here. Discovery Kingdom's still in the Six Flags chain. Let's let not go there yet. Also, I'd kind of doubt it because I mean, they have some sea life, but I wouldn't really say that's like the overarching theme of the park at this point, like at all. So I would say probably not. Um, and and yeah, I mean that's a good question as far as who would take over. If I had to guess, Premier Parks right now, their actual like dry park count is like really low because of like they got out of Elitch Gardens, they got out of Pacific Park, not Magic Springs, sorry. Wild Waves is closing, so like they have Magic Springs and like I guess technically LaRon now, I guess is like their dry parks if I'm correct, unless I'm missing something. So I wouldn't be surprised if those two go to Premier Parks, which I wouldn't exactly be super enthused to see if that happens, but I think that is potentially more realistic because for I Am and Enchanted Parks, like this is a massive undertaking in taking over six parks when they currently operate. Um, I guess it's listed as two. The water park also has like a little like amusement park slash FEC type thing. So like you could I guess say three parks, but like it's gonna be a pretty big thing for them. I wouldn't want to load them up any more beyond this, um, it if I could avoid it. So, but we will see if and when that happens. Now, getting back onto the topic, I will also have a Q&A session here towards the end, but let's get started here on the Six Flags EPR discussion. I will pull up the slides if I can get them up here. Let's see, the custom thing should work. Or actually, it might not. I might have to do this because I don't think I formatted it in a way that, not that. Where's the screen thing where it's like this way? That's so weird that it's doing that. Okay, can we do... Okay, I don't know why the format just like decided to go crazy on me, but there we go. Okay, we'll do it this way. The graphics are not going to be the prettiest thing. I literally just like created these very quickly, but they'll get the point across. So that's really what matters. So background into the sale for those watching afterwards or those less familiar. This was like before it actually happened for the most part. We've known for a while Six Flags has wanted to sell parks, like shrink their portfolio, make it more nimble. So this move makes sense from that standpoint. We saw that trademarks were filed by Enchanted Parks for the listed parks here back in early January. That was kind of our first hint that, like, something like this was happening. And that Enchanted Parks company was tied back to Innovative Attractions Management, or IAM, and did a little more digging into that. Enthusiasts did, and they found out that they currently operate Water Safari and Diggerland USA. They've also managed other water parks in the past, so that's kind of their history. And then we had the whole social media saga, and I actually was able to find out thanks to really thanks to the Park Fans forums. They were on this yesterday night. But they found that Enchanted Parks had actually began making social media accounts as early as January. The Facebook account was created in January. The other ones that followed, I believe, were mostly in February, including the Instagram. I have no idea when they started putting the images up. I think on actually Facebook it was in February. So I guess it was out there. So it at least took a little bit for people to find it. Once it was found, though, yesterday, the Instagram account that was following all the parks that were in the trademarks plus Valley Fair. That was also kind of the first time where it was really thought that, oh, Valley Fair could be involved. I know there was also some other little there was some discussion on forums, I think, relating to like some transaction or something that happened back in January related to Valley Fair. There was something there that people were keeping their eyes on. So I guess technically there was a little bit of hints prior, but this was like the first time it was like really like, kind of known throughout. And that happened yesterday. Of course, he had the whole saga I mentioned earlier with the account managers like deciding to try to cover themselves when people figured out what was going on, and then we got the announcement today that EPR is going to be acquiring 7 parks from the Six Flags chain, 6 of those going to Enchanted Parks, which is formerly IAM, and then LaRonde will be going to the LaRonde Operations Inc. So here we have the parks listed here. The Enchanted Parks list, just to go over it: Michigan's Adventure, Schlitterbahn, Galveston, so the smaller of the two Schlitterbahn locations down in Texas. Six Flags Great Escape, Six Flags St. Louis, Valley Fair, and Worlds of Fun are going to be the 6 parks that are part of that chain. LaRonde already mentioned earlier. Likely to have pretty much like similar operations to Premier Parks, with CEO being the same. So that's the expectation there. The 7 parks were sold for $331 million, which kind of just looking over some things does kind of seem low. But I was listening to Andrew Hyde from In the Loop. He did an emergency podcast, great follow on X or Twitter. And he was going over that, what exactly were the offers out there. This was probably the only offer that existed, so you're going to take what you're going to get. And, Six Flags being in the situation they're in, wanting to get out of parks, this probably was like, it was a deal that made sense. Interestingly enough, over Georgia's remaining buyout cost, at least when it was estimated to be $332 million. So conveniently enough, the amount they're getting for the 7 parks and that cost lines up pretty well. Just a note, but that is something, because that payment is coming up. So that was an interesting note that Andrew Hyde mentioned, and figured I'd throw it here. But the combined 7 parks, for some additional numbers, they made $45 million in adjusted EBITDA. I probably should have looked into how to better say that prior to the stream, which isn't the same as profit. Profit's going to probably actually be lower than that, but that's the number we have to go off of. I know there's a net revenue number, but this, I think, is probably closer to what the actual profit would be. And they also had 4.5 million guests that attended the parks combined in 2025. That's good for about 9.5% of the total Six Flags attendance on the year, which actually I was kind of surprised it was that low. But I mean, kind of makes sense. So also you kind of think of it that way, like they sold it for that much, and it's only that much of a percentage of their total attendance. And then if you go off that number, the 45 million, like just the number of years it would take to get to that 331 mil, like that's a lot of years of operation. So from that standpoint, like it looks good. Um, not a finance expert at all though, so just some extra notes there. We have some quotes here that basically this first one from new Six Flags CEO John Riley's kind of going into what a lot of us are thinking, that hopefully this will lead to a better focus and better investments into the core parks and the parks they really want to invest into. And that's reflected here. And then as for the Enchanted Parks quote, that was probably just kind of the more notable one I found there. Interesting that the press release also kind of had a decent bit of focus on like the local area and families as well. So we'll note that. As for some additional things, Six Flags will operate these parks through 2026. And if you're worried about season passes, those are completely unaffected through this year, so you'll have no problems there. IP usage also, they're not gonna have to like immediately rush to get rid of everything like literally before the season starts. I'm very curious to see what's gonna happen with it after 2026, but at least for this year, it's not it's not gonna be affected. So you have that as well. That was probably the beefiest chunk of the slides. Next, we got Enchanted Parks. So a little bit more about them. As mentioned earlier, this is IAM rebranded. Currently operate Diggerland USA and Water Safari Resort, which holds the properties that you see there, including two lodging options. Both of those were acquired in 2024. They also have experience managing several water parks. You can see the ones listed there. So they at least have a lot of experience, managing parks. Obviously, mostly water parks, but that is something. A lot of people have been talking about, what could potentially happen with the investment of these parks. Well, I'm here to tell you that if you weren't aware, Enchanted Forest Water Safari is actually adding an SBF spinner in 2026. So that's at least a new coaster. I don't really know if that's super indicative of anything that's going to happen, but hey, they're adding a new coaster to one of the new parks they recently acquired. That's something, right? And based on looking at the website, the chain seems to be family focused. Their listed values were centered a lot around immersion and kind of delivering a magical experience. I believe the CEO actually used to work as a Disney cast member, so that potentially lines up there. I don't know if those specific values and listed things they're pursuing really make a ton of sense for the parks they're acquiring, but that is what is listed on the website. One of my concerns with this chain, in addition to obviously them going from this just owning this water park resort property and a tiny park, and growing from there into a pretty decent sized chain now, is the logo here is pretty clearly AI. I looked at the website. I can't outright confirm it, but there were a lot of things that, or at least a few things I'll say, that did seem potentially written by AI. Potentially, I don't want to say for sure, but just kind of looking at it, obviously AI usage, there's a lot of discussion about that, but I just kind of perceive it as a little, especially if the logo, I would just go a different route. I mean, it's your logo that represents your company. Having AI do that, I think that's just not the best look, in my opinion. I think it can be used in other ways. I just don't really love that. So I did note it. Um, but moving on, I have some initial thoughts. I mentioned earlier, but really enjoy this or like this from Six Flags Then. I think this will allow them to invest and focus more on fewer properties. I'm intrigued to see what Enchanted Parks can do. Just because the little bits I've heard, people seem to be positive on them for what they've done with Water Safari. Like they are adding, again, an SPF spinner. Uh, I've heard the little bits that I've heard, people seem to have a positive opinion of them, but there's not a ton to go off of there. So I'm at least intrigued to see what they can do for these 6 new parks they have. I'm going to doubt that we're going to see large ride investments, but I'm hoping maybe more so improve the infrastructure, maybe more entertainment offerings if we're kind of taking the immersion statement and families focus on families, like, that would align with that. And then just like kind of quality of life, quality of experience improvements, perhaps. I think if they can, do that, that would certainly help. But we'll see if what they're actually going to do. I do also have reservations though with this whole thing, just because EPR properties, their parks haven't gotten like a ton of investment, and they are the main owners, so um, they're gonna have to kind of sort through that. It's not like their parks will never get anything, and I do think like the operators, like that does matter, because there's even a difference between what like Hershend was with the parks they operated, and even Six Flags compared to like a Premier Parks. I think there's a difference there, so I still think the operator will matter here, but there is, EPR is still going to be something that we'll have to see how they end up treating these new properties. Enchanted Parks, again, being a small like chain with like two, like, a resort and a smaller park, now with 8 parks, or like pretty much at this point, that's a huge growth. That there's probably going to be growing pains that come with that. Is it going to be too much for them? Time will tell, so I'm concerned about that. The AI went over earlier. And I also, like I said, I kind of doubt we're going to see major ride investments, or at least like, that often. So I think there's that as well that is going to have to be considered. But that's, to be determined. I do feel for locals, this is a scary change into the unknown. Um, you know, could these parks get better experience wise? Yes. Could they stay stagnant? Yes. Could they also potentially get worse? That is, all of those are very much on the table and possible. So, it is scary for that reason. So I do feel for locals who have legitimate concerns about this. Um, Not particularly optimistic about LaRonde. Can it get much worse? Time will tell. I'll kind of leave it at that. And then just some questions was hit on earlier, but what will happen with Six Flags' EPR owned properties? Are those going to be on the move? Is something I was wondering. Like what type of investment can we expect to see 4 to 7 parks? How are the IPs going to be handled and replaced, like kind of, beyond this year? Aging rides as well, because like Six Flags St. Louis obviously has, Mr. Freeze, Ninja, like some rides that are either aging or like problematic. How are those going to be handled? Um, will the overall experience improve? I think I kind of went over that, so that one's pretty simple. Um, and then um, will we see like further infrastructure improvements and maybe more like thoughtful investments for the remaining parks, even if they're not like anything too earth shattering? Are those are just some of the questions I have, as we pretty much wrap the slides up. Um, so that'll pretty much be that. I'll go through some of the chat. Um, let's see. I have yeah, so two guests that will be coming on tonight. Um, so and I did mention actually I guess yeah, I'll write in private chat here actually. So what's supposed to happen? Um, all right, so we'll do that. But I will read through the chat as well, just some thoughts that came through, and still, if you have any, go for it. Um, you were gonna say Hershen's been screwing up parks as well, not out of the realm of possibility. They want Darien Lake back. Yeah, it could be the case. I don't know if they want to be in that specific situation again. But and also at this point, Hershend is pretty large. I don't really want them to take on much more than what they have because I'm also kind of concerned like long term what that's gonna look like. But could something like that happen? Especially if it's just kind of managing, like they're not putting much investment. Like I think that could work. Um, so I would be open to seeing that with Darien Lake and Frontier City. Uh, your in-laws in St. Louis were messaging you when rumors of St. Louis sale hit the news. Yeah, pretty crazy, crazy times we're in. Um, let's see what else. LaRon Operations Inc. sounds like a name that we made was made up on the spot when asked about it. I mean, we don't really know how long this whole thing like how long it took to materialize. And then also like so when the Enchanted Parks filings were made, was like Valley Fair a part of that? Was that something that was like added later? I kind of think it's probably like added later. And then when did LaRon like become a part of this whole thing? So it kind of seems a little like yeah, you just kind of made it up like really fast. I don't disagree. um, but it is a funny name for sure, just because of that. So um, just Park Operations Inc. But hopefully it ends up working out for Laurent. Like I said, can't really get too much worse, right? Um, you decided to do the math. It has basically been confirmed that Six Flags was losing money on the parks. Basically, they made 45 million. Uh, EBITDA, I believe these parks would have either depreciated themselves in the description already have. I don't know that I would go that far, but like, yeah, I don't think they probably weren't getting like a lot out of them. Especially because yeah, the profit's going to be lower than that number. So, um, yeah, no, I think that's kind of the one thing where you look at like the 331 million and you're like, wow, okay, so how many years would it have taken to operate the parks to get to that? So there is definitely that. Um, and I again think it was a smart move just to move on from those. They're not gonna they like Six Flags wasn't really investing in those parks that much. I know Great Escape recently got Bobcat, so that was cool. And Worlds of Fun got Zambezi Zinger a few years ago, but like besides that, there really wasn't much going on. And hopefully this ends up being best case scenario for all parties. I think that's what people are hoping for. I don't really know that that's the most realistic thing, especially like I said in LeBron. I don't really have a ton of hope there. Um, Even with the bar being set as low as it is. Um, but and Enchanted Parks is still like a massive mystery box in terms of what are the parks going to be looking like once we come out the other side. But there's definite, but hopefully it ends up being for the best. Um, your home park is LaRon, and you're pretty excited. Probably should have read this before I put this up, but whatever, it works. Hey, I at least appreciate the optimism for LeBron. I seriously do hope that this is for the better, and I don't disagree with your statement about Six Flags. Um, the people who will manage it already said that they are going to make big changes. I probably should have looked more into the if there was a specific press release for LeBron. I probably should have looked more into that. I had to do this so quick. I really do hope this is for the better. And if they already said that, then it is statements like a statement for now. But I'd like to hope that they are able to keep to that. And again, like the bar is like so low right now that like you can definitely improve. So hopefully for those who have LeBron as a home park or a park nearby, this is able to work out despite like I was being certainly pessimistic earlier. Maybe it will, and hey, at least if anything, if Premier Parks having like less dry parks is than they used to is good for anything. That's potentially more for LeBron to work with. So that can certainly be seen as a positive for sure. Um, Another contender you can see is Gene State. No, I would be pretty surprised if that happens. I must say I don't think so. I think that chain has its work cut out for it as is. Um, so yeah, and then Kosarit, welcome to the stream. Let's see, and then Gage fan. To put things in perspective on the current state of Six Flags for Lodges, yes, California's Great America. The land is super valuable though. That's I think that's a pretty big difference. The land under these parks, like I mean, very clearly is just not really that valuable. Like I think a lot of people were bringing up when Six Flags was saying they were gonna sell their parks. It's like, well, realistically, like what other parks actually have valuable land attached to them? And some of the parks that were being mentioned, like I mean, Michigan's Adventure. What are you gonna do with that? Valley Fair is built in a floodplain. Like, not really a great spot for residential, in all likelihood. So that's I think would is a little bit of a different situation because these parks are still being purchased as parks. The land that is underneath them is not particularly valuable. Great America is, in the middle of Silicon Valley and had very valuable land. Like, I think that's a pretty big difference. So you have that. Valley Fair is also an industrial, so that would also be a red flag. There you go. Six Flags America hasn't sold yet, but like, I think they're gonna once it's all said and done. I think they are gonna get a solid chunk of change. I don't know what exactly that's gonna be, but it is probably gonna be a decent bit. So like again, that's another park where just the land that's under it is going to be very valuable. I don't really think that was the case with any of these, and I think clearly so because I don't think you make this move if you think that you can if you think the land's valuable and you can sell a lot more to turn it into something else. So you do have that. You're hoping with new ownership they can negotiate what to do with the SBNO rides at LeBron. Yeah. Oh yeah, that would be good. They got to figure that out. Oh man, the state of that park. Oh man, like there's unfortunately there's a reason why LeBron has been like the butt of many jokes over the years. So just any sort of improvement will be welcome for sure. And starting those rides, figuring out what to do with them would be a good starting point. Oh man. Okay, so at this point, I think I've got through the chat. Um, let's see. I'm going to message my first guest real quick. If they do not come on yet. I will probably start with my other guests, so we'll go from there. Once again, you can keep chatting away, and we'll. Oh, and as I say that, our first guest has arrived. Um, I guess yeah. So we'll do that, and then my second guest will go afterwards. I'll kind of keep it um, as that for now. So um, let's see. So I'll just ask to make sure that we are good to go. Let's see. Someone in chat had something about LaRon being the most transit-oriented park on the continent, at least in terms of having a rail connection. Does have pretty sweet spot there. Not as familiar with it in relation to the transit, but like just where it's located in Montreal is pretty sweet. So, alrighty. So our first guest is going to be someone who actually this whole event very much hits close to home. Has Six Flags St. Louis as their home park. So that being said, let's bring on Jack from Justice League Battle for Metropolis expert. How are you doing?
I am doing decent. I'm getting over this cold, so I don't feel the greatest, but I'm hanging in there.
For sure. Glad to have you back on. For those
Yeah.
who haven't, who don't remember or haven't been watching for that long, Jack was with me for, I believe, what may have been the first or one of the first coaster drafts we had on here. So happy to have you back. We'll ask, of course, about Six Flags St. Louis, obviously that being your home park.
hmm
What are your thoughts on the new sort of Enchanted parks, like the acquisition of Six Flags St. Louis, it leaving Six Flags? Do you have, are you excited for it? Are you worried about it? Where are you at right now?
I'm going to be perfectly blunt. I'm not happy about this, not even slightly.
Yeah, I can certainly get that. What concerns I suppose would you have specifically for Six Flags St. Louis?
Basically, to basically put this into perspective, a lot of people are saying the park has not improved in recent years. That couldn't be further from the truth. Like not only in terms of new attractions, but in terms of other general updates. Like especially this past year, the landscaping was looking better. New shows were added. They got Grand Ole Carousel reopened after its long refurbishment. They started a multi-year retracking project on the Boss. So they were making changes for the better, and it was definitely noticeable.
Okay, that is good to hear. Obviously, I mean, I haven't been to any of these parks, so having that perspective is good. In that case, then yeah, I do even feel, I mentioned earlier that I do feel for the locals because this is a scary change. And hearing that St. Louis was getting legitimate like upgrades and now, it's put into question, that definitely is something that gives me even more pause in relation to the change. Uh, at this point we don't really know, like, Enchanted Parks, we know that they were previously IAM. They've operated or operate Diggerland USA and Water Safari out in New York, but we don't know a ton about them. EPR properties, pretty familiar with just because of the premier parks, like, with them. What are your thoughts of that as far as being like kind of new operators and new ownership?
Well, I'm hearing that EPR supposedly is teaming up with Enchanted Parks, and I heard they operate parks like Magic Springs. To my knowledge, they haven't gotten any large investment in a while, so to think that St. Louis could be going that path has me nervous, to say the least.
Enchanted Parks is not the same as Premier Parks. Premier Parks is, separate operator. They are both under EPR, so there could be some similarity there with, what the investment is like. So yeah, I could definitely see that being a concern. I will say that at least the water park that uh, IAM operates, they've only had it for 2 years. They are, I mean, yes, it's a very small addition, but they are giving them an SPF spinner this year, so that's at least better than what Magic Springs has gotten, which is practically nothing. So I'm a
Yeah.
little more hopeful with that operator and like that management, but obviously it's a massive question mark at this point.
hmm
Uh, is there anything as far as like just like things you would want to see it like in a like best case or like a good case scenario as far as with this new change, what you would like to see for Six Flags St. Louis.
Well, I already know that. I think it's safe to say, definitely. I think this is the only park in the chain that is like, well, besides Worlds of Fun, but this is like the most IPs integrated into it with DC Comics and Looney Tunes. Whereas Worlds of Fun, I think, just as the Peanuts. I'd be lying if I said I felt confident every single ride making it to 2027 for that reason. Like, I know Justice League's probably in big trouble because that heavily relies on DC. And I'm also really worried about Mr. Freeze now because, like, I was fully convinced that it was done for after this past year. But given how it's pushing 30 now, obviously, I don't know how long it actually is left. But I don't know if they would bother retheming it if it only had, say, 5 years left.
That is a really good point, and actually, I had not seen really a whole lot of talk about specifically Freeze. Justice League, yeah, I've seen a lot just because it's like, well, what are you exactly gonna do with that? As far as like, you don't have the rights to the IP. It's fully themed around DC. Like, I don't really know if repurposing it is possible, and it definitely would be costly. So that definitely is. But Mr. Freeze, you bring up a really good point there. Like, if it's yeah, only got a few years left. Like,
Supposedly. Which, like I said, we don't know how long it has left.
yeah, but I wouldn't be stunned just because, I mean, yeah, pretty problematic coaster. Same with its sibling at Over Texas. But yeah, I would certainly hope that, Mr. Freeze is able to survive and they can figure like something out. But man, that is, yeah, that definitely was a good point to bring up there. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I guess like improvements, like what would you want to see there for St. Louis if that was able to work out?
For like in general or for Mr. Freeze or what are we talking
Just
about
just
here?
the park in general for Six Flags St.
See,
Louis.
I think if they have to remove a decent amount of attractions, which actually that brings to another attraction I'm slightly worried about. I don't know what's gonna happen with Joker Carnival of Chaos because that hasn't
Mm,
even opened the Funhouse yet. But I think if they have to remove a lot of attractions, I hope that they get worthy replacements. Like if they remove Freeze, they better have a darn good replacement for it. Otherwise, they really screwed up.
yeah, I think the ride replacements. I was going through the points earlier. I was just kind of general because I know that like a lot of these parks do have aging rides and aging coasters, and if we're basing this off of EPR properties, like, majority of them being operated by Premier Parks, but, EPR is still the main owner and, controls what the investment level is. Those parks have removed rides and not really gotten replacements for stuff. So that is a big concern. I hope that, as you said, if they do remove rides, that they do actually have replacements incoming for them. That's got to be one of the biggest concerns of this whole thing. So can
It's also
definitely
sorry.
see that.
It's also worth noting Mr. Freeze is kind of in a weird position. It's on an island dead center in the park, so they can't really. I feel like they can't really put too much there.
Mm,
I mean, I'm thinking about what they could do. I mean, maybe some other modern launch coaster. Like maybe also, I don't know if a Vekoma Super Boomerang would work there. I mean, maybe if they use just a plot of the land where the launch tunnel for Freeze is, but I don't know. That leaves a whole bunch of space still open, so I really don't know what they could do with it.
yeah. And if they have to get rid of it quick, it might be a little bit before we see a replacement, which obviously would be less than ideal. But I do hope for St. Louis locals they are able to get that sorted out because the scenario you've brought up is like I could very realistically see it happen. It not something that I had seen or thought of, but I absolutely that's on my radar now. With you mentioning it and that making a lot of sense. So, um, yeah, so I mean, definitely some good insight there. I'm not sure if there's any other aspects of this whole thing you want to cover, but I guess sort of as like a last kind of question, I guess, or just any other thoughts you have on this, either for St. Louis or maybe any rides in specific, or maybe any of the other parks that this involved, that are involved, anything with any of that.
Because like I guess the first question I have is, will they continue because I heard the retracking project on Boss was multi-year. Now with the chain
Mm,
getting sold up, with now with the park getting sold, I'm not sure if they're going to continue that this year. And another thing that I have that's kind of looking in the future, what's going to happen with CoasterCon next year? Because it's supposed to be at Silver Dollar City and Six Flags St. Louis. Now
Oh, wow.
I'm not sure if they're gonna uh, keep it at St. Louis, regardless of whatever park it is, or they're gonna move it to a different location, or maybe have it just be Silver Dollar. But I feel like they wouldn't do just Silver Dollar. Although maybe they could. I have no clue.
Yeah, that's an interesting one to monitor as well. I still would feel like, I mean, it's hard to get a read because new ownership, not a lot on them, but I would like to think they would try to do their best to still like keep it and keep to that sort of, I guess, commitment to Ace, but that is something that potentially might not work out. So that is definitely an interesting point to bring up. Actually, Frontier Coasters has a question like your thoughts on if anything could happen with Ninja at Six Flags
Hmm.
St. Louis.
That is an interesting one. Yes, it's not the most popular, but from what I heard from some higher ups of the park, it doesn't cost a lot to operate, and so they would. I feel like they would just keep rolling with it. I think, honestly, I know this may sound shocking to people watching, but I actually like Ninja. I'm one of the only people that enjoy the thing.
Hey, good to hear some praise for it. Haven't ridden it myself, so can't comment on it. But hey, good to hear it getting some love. And I mean, you named already two rides that like I very much do see on like the chopping block. I think Justice League is I mean
In
basically like
trouble.
yeah, it's yeah. So Mr. Freeze might not be too far from that. So hopefully, they aren't having to get rid of a bunch of stuff at the same time because that's just trying to keep up with that, and especially for a chain like this that now just acquired 6 new parks and is pretty small as is, that could be where you get into a lot of trouble. So hopefully they are able to at least keep it like you know keep it to a point where they can replenish and work things out with what they're dealing with and what they're removing. So hopefully that's able to work out. But yeah, um, let's see. Frontier Coasters also brings up Boomerang, but I would assume that's, although I've heard that does that have a decent bit of downtime? I've heard that that is the
Yeah,
case.
yeah.
Okay.
Although, believe it or not, from my experience the past few years, Scream and Eagle's been having a ton of downtime for some reason.
Hmm. Okay.
It's like it often goes down at least once, if not twice a day. I don't know.
Interesting.
Which actually, something that is worth mentioning. You mentioned Ace. If people are visiting, do you have plans to visit St. Louis this year?
At this point, I do not, unfortunately,
Okay.
and we'll see what happens. But um, those parks, I mean, earlier this year, I did a trip to Japan on 2 weeks' notice. So,
Okay.
like, anything could happen. But I do not currently have plans to visit St. Louis or any of the other parks involved. Though, if an opportunity arises, I'll definitely jump for it just because I mean it's about the most convenient and cheap I'm ever going to be able to do it with it being on the pass for this year. But you were going to say for St. Louis?
What if I told you that I have the perfect opportunity for you to visit the park?
And what would that be?
August 29th of this year, there's an Ace event, Daredevil Days. There's usually a backstage tour of some sort, an hour or two of extra ride time on some of the coasters. First train of the day take over on Batman. Great, best time of year to visit the park. Not even close.
Okay, all right. Um, I I would that is a good point to bring up, and with it being the last year of it being a Six Flags park, there definitely that is something I could see. Um, that's something to consider, and I think a lot of other people would be wise to consider that as well who haven't been. So that's a good shout out.
Yeah, it's like it's not the most attended event. I mean, I don't. I mean, there's a decent amount of people that go to it each year, but it's not like Hollywood Nights or
Yeah.
CoasterCon or anything like that. But it's still, it's definitely worth trying. It's like I said, no better time of year to visit the park.
No better time of year, and well, no better time in general. So
Yeah,
because I assume that might not be something that I will see if that's something that continues to exist or not, post. So 2026. But no, good shout out there. I think that'll pretty much wrap it up. Any other thoughts or any other plugs you want to mention or shout out here before you head out?
Nothing really, but one thing this news has definitely told me, if I want any chance of getting my 3,000th max score on Justice League, which I'm at 2632, I better step up my game because
I
time is running out.
Well, I am rooting for you, and I think the stream is rooting for you to hit that max score that you can get. So best of
Yep.
luck with that. And Jack from Justice League Battle for Metropolis expert, good to have you here,
Yeah.
and I will see you next time
Thanks for having me on.
for sure. Alrighty, so that's our first guest. Huge thanks to Jack for coming on. Appreciate the insight into St. Louis, obviously home park. It was awesome to get somebody who is affected like in that way by this change, because I mean that's the reality for a lot of people with 7 parks being involved. We had someone in chat earlier who their home park was LaRonde. Like, yeah, that is the reality of it. Is like we don't really know what's gonna happen. Or heck, you can even like project like some IP based attractions that are like it's heavily integrated at like Justice League. There's going to be a pretty big issue with that. So there are some things you can kind of project out as well. That's I wouldn't like as an outsider wouldn't necessarily think of, um, but yeah, no, those are certainly some good points there as far as what could potentially be on the chopping block and what could potentially change there. And also like the fact that St. Louis was actually getting improvements over the previous Six Flags ownership, because I think a lot of us just kind of are like, they were like, they haven't really gotten anything in a while. Like, they were not being treated well. So to get a different perspective on that and to hear that there were legitimately good changes happening at one of these parks, makes it even more potentially devastating to see this change, depending on what happens. So, very early in the process, we'll have to see what plays out. But with that being said, I will ask our second guest if they are ready. And then, if that's the case, alrighty. So I will be bringing my second guest to the stream. This is going to be Lindsay from History and Leisure. How are you doing tonight?
All right, evening, everyone.
Good to hear. And then I was curious, I guess more so, you're probably maybe more so looking at this from like the overall perspective, but if you have any individual parks you'd like to shout out
My
or
main
highlight.
focus was that I was looking through for my videos has been about over winter has been focusing on Comté des Alpes and Looping, which are both based in France. And in 2011, probably because of the Great Recession, Comté des Alpes divested some of their non-core parks into a new company. And at the time, they started off owning a 30% stake in the company, but then they took that on. I think there was a rumor at one point that maybe Enchanted Parks could be like that they're going to spin it off and possibly maybe own a stake for a while. And at that time in 2011, they sold off the Corbin Tours and the one in Saint-Malo, a miniature park, Bagatelle on the coast, and they actually brought like the grandson of the founder back on to be in charge of the park. Merisabel, which is only like 5.5 miles across the green belt from Parc Asterix, which is kind of shocked me looking at that the first time. A zoo, an indoor water park, very close to the French border in Switzerland, and then originally Pleasurewood Hills, but they sold that after last season, and then Adventure Park Hellendoorn as well, and then they also picked up Fort Fun Adventureland later. Like Hellendoorn and Fort Fun, like looking at them, they're pretty similar, except Fort Fun is like in the mountains.
Yeah.
So that was mainly like thought there, and hearing the rumor of Enchanted Parks during the times, like, could the story of the Lupin Group be a good in Europe, be a good parallel possibly what we could be seeing here? Maybe, but also we're just talking about like all the IP integration with the Six Flags parks, especially with St. Louis, that none of those parks had any IP integration. And while Coney Island technically has their like own original IPs, like the Wallaby brand with the 3 parks, and they actually use that in their ski resorts as well. That's the main reason why they got into the theme park game to begin with and bought off the Wallaby Park from Six Flags back in 2004 was part to diversify their portfolio, and actually had bought Park Asterix a few years before that acquisition. So I don't think many people were thinking about that idea when looking to Looping Group. Maybe some people in Europe were, but like I didn't really see like the Spaniards talking about that specifically, or haven't followed theme park worldwide in some time. But
that could be a good comp. I mean, Looping Group. I had not thought of Looping Group as like a potential parallel, but obviously that's a chain that. I mean, yeah, they've existed for a little while now.
The thing is also is that none of those parks haven't really put much investment in since their founding. Like Dre Mare has been a big exception, but a part of all that was that the family was owning it. It was kind of like in a downturn following the pandemic because I think the Rapids had been closed for some time, and they had to remove their G-Force. Part of that I think was more to go down more family friendly, but there might have been an accident or something. I might be wrong. And so I think they reopened the Rapids, converted their stand up to a sit down, and then they replaced their drop tower with a new intimate family launch. And they also rethemed their classic powered coaster, and I think the only big like spot right now they have to work with is their old dark ride building there. And then also they did give Meredith Sabelle a Wild Buffalo, but and then Isla Mágica was supposed to get a wooden coaster, but that got canceled. And I've been to Isla Mágica on a rather rainy day, and there's like a 40 theater and a dark ride underneath one of the former pavilions, since that location was used for the 1992 World's Fair. I think there was like apparently a school up there, so that might even be more of a non-starter to use for like something like a dark coaster or something than whatever wall they were stopped the wooden coaster. But I was thinking about that as like an alternate while looking into it. For that park, but I think La Ronde is definitely probably a park that I think is probably seen as non-core, but could be more important if given the proper care. And I kind of see what this is more like Kieran Burke setting up something to have like the proper people to operate the park on behalf of the city, and that maybe kind of for the renegotiation of the lease.
Okay. I
know I said Valley Fair is like also like an industrial area, so I think that would also be probably a non-starter for redevelopment. And then also you have all the water parks and stuff, and you can really go do a lot more with a lot less.
Yeah, I mean, it'll definitely be interesting to see just kind of how these parks are treated. What's the like, and I mean, like I said earlier, I was being pretty pessimistic on the run, but I mean, hopefully that was just kind of being more initial reaction. Hopefully, those who've been more optimistic are right, and they're just kind of putting in place the right people to operate that park. Just because of where it's been, so that would obviously be nice to see. What are your potential like is in specific like sort of hopes as for how this how these parks could potentially be improved under new ownership?
Well, it's fun to just get a decent investment, and that is a growing area of interest So maybe there could be some investment there, but St. Louis, Michigan's Adventure don't really have. St. Louis has like a losing population, and Michigan's Adventure is kind of in the middle of nowhere. So I know Michigan's Adventure actually does pretty well for themselves. So, and that's why I haven't really seen much reason to reinvest up there. Then like Darien Lake has that whole resort aspect. So, but like I wouldn't be surprised if Rite of Steel, they would take out Rite of Steel before Viper, just because it's such a
Okay.
large coaster to maintain.
That's a good point. But I mean, Darien Lake, of course, another EPR property, and we'll see what the heck happens with that. I, as mentioned earlier, think there could potentially be some movement there.
Yeah, I know OKC is like a booming metro as well, so it does kind of feel like a shame that park, that Frontier City doesn't get a lot of love. But I feel that whenever they get like their next coaster, it's probably going to either replace or spell the end of their shuttle loop, probably.
Yeah, I would 100% agree on that. Just the weird hours they have over the summer, or at least that they had last year. Yeah,
I know. I think like for spring break, I saw for like Sesame Place in Philadelphia is at like I think it's like 30th to 31st and April 1st are only doing like 4 to 8, even though that's like spring break and that's when most of the kids in the area are off. So I don't know whether they aren't doing full day, but I know they did like Slash Live Entertainment, and Andre Thrills and Magic did a whole post about that. That United was cutting a lot of their live entertainment.
Yeah, no, I have heard that. Not something that's kind of in the background for me, but I have kind of heard people discussing that, which I do think is a shame, just because that is, live entertainment is something that a lot of people do enjoy, and I know in our community is certainly something that's underrated, but you don't like.
Yeah,
to
I
see
feel
that,
like
obviously
it's something like you don't care if it's there, but you notice if it's absent. Like, like Great Venture's really been real known for lacking entertainment during the summer. So
yeah, so Frontier Coasters does have some thoughts on Frontier City. I will get to that in a sec, but I guess kind of like I guess last question or questions, I guess, because I'll throw a few in here. You can answer whichever we want. What are your concerns with this new buyout on the aspect of the parks that it's that are being purchased by EPR, and are there just any other thoughts in general, whether from EPR standpoint, Six Flags, that you have on this?
I think would probably be sort of mainly seeing St. Louis in the short term about where things go there, and sort of like thinking more about their day-to-day operations. Like, will they stick to Iowa? Because I know a lot of people haven't been thrilled about Six Flags post-merger really doubling down on that, and they'll have other parks even overseas have been doing. I don't know if they're gonna stick with IROC. Some people might have concerns about that, especially since some parks are notorious for long dispatches. Like I think Darien Lake has issues with that, I've heard.
Yeah, I've heard definitely some complaints in relation to the operations with IROC having come in with a lot of these parks, so that could be.
Although I do wonder, is like a weird, but I guess would be with since Elitch Gardens is another park whose days are numbered, would be if any rides from those parks could be salvageable to be spread across any of these parks that are leaving the Six Flags chain
Okay.
when that time comes. But like they have an old shuttle loop that's barely open. Same with an Intamin half pipe. Their wooden coaster is not going anywhere.
Wait, you're talking about Elitch Gardens?
Yeah, since it's kind of like connected.
Well, yeah, but EPR is no longer the owner of that. At least my understanding is they actually sold off Elitch a few years ago. Or maybe not a few years, but I believe they did recently. I think the Crunky family, they own it. Oh wait, no, Premier Parks. It still says they operate. I don't know how that works. That is interesting.
If Premiere operates, then they probably might be able to get some maybe allowed to
Actually,
use the
yeah,
ride as they will
yeah,
when they close it.
Yeah, when they close it. Okay, that's actually a good shout out. Yeah, even because though it's the same owner, it's like what they're not really gonna care probably. So, um, like maybe they'll have to pay him like a little bit for it, but yeah, no, that's a good shout out. Um, but yeah, any other or last thoughts before we head out?
I think we're all set for tonight.
Already sounds good. Thank you so much for coming on, Lindsay. Happy to have you on, and have a good night. Alrighty, so that'll wrap it up for our call-ins for tonight. I will move on to, I guess actually we'll go through the last two comments. If anything else comes up as far as the topic, or just any questions in general, we'll do that, and then we'll play some Guess the Coaster. So that'll be the plan. That'll lead us into ultimately our final Q&A. So shorter stream tonight. That was kind of the goal. If the worst were to come this for Jack, but yeah, you could still ride the other Justice League rides. But I mean, having that at your home park versus having to go, God, being in St. Louis like a good while. Like I guess probably yeah, Great America probably is the closest. So, and I don't even keep track of what Six Flags parks have Justice League. I'm pretty sure Great America has to have it though, right? Yes, they do. So, yeah, but man, that's a long drive. So that would be unfortunate. Hey, but at least he's maxed out the over Texas and Great America versions. So there you go. Oh, over Texas, I guess, but I think that's even further. Let's see. You visited Kings Island during the ACE Spring Conference. Thought it was awesome. You also did Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, and Kings Dominion this year for the Spring Con as well. That was great as well. Good to hear. Obviously, with the St. Louis ACE event shout out here as well. This is a good question. If Enchanted Parks doesn't work out, what do I think will happen with the acquired parks? Closure, a new someone else acquiring, or back to Six Flags? Oh man, that would be a dire situation. I think it would probably be on a case by case basis. I think there's a world where like maybe Hershon is like, one or two of these looks good. Maybe Six Flags as well. Maybe if they are in a better state, they're like, you know what, we can, like many years later, be like, yeah, we can take one or two of these back. I could see potentially some closing as well, though, if they're just that unattractive. But I mean, I don't really know what you could do if you're in Enchanted Parks because, again, these parks, the land is not that valuable. I mean, there's two of them that, like, I mean, Valley Fair, like, what are you gonna do with that? And Michigan's Adventure, same thing. So, and then St. Louis, as Lindsay said, shrinking population, on kind of the outskirts of the city, like what, like I mean, I don't really know what exactly you're gonna do. So when it comes to that, so I think it would be probably, like I said, a case by case basis. Maybe some parks get picked up, maybe some close. Probably something like that. I really hope we don't have to get to that point. And then Frontier Coasters had a comment on Frontier City. You had your biggest investment yet, or in quite a while, with the rebuilding of the Dark Ride. No theme changes, but I mean, yeah, that's still pretty notable. So, and I know that Six Flags has put some money into Frontier City as far as like just kind of improvements and maintenance, and I know some attractions have got. I know Wildcat. I think a few years ago they were like repainting it as well, doing some stuff with that. So it's not like these parks are like literally getting absolutely nothing. Um, so that is something to note as we kind of talk about these parks kind of quote unquote being neglected. Um, I guess more so specifically the ones that got sold, but you can also throw in Frontier City and Darien Lake because I think a lot of people are kind of on the same page of what is going to happen here. I just realized my lamp's not on, so let me change that. So let me get some water real quick as I see another chat came in. Love Frontier City's Dark Ride. Glad to hear they're taking care of it. Yes, that is obviously always good to hear. Just Dark Ride love in general. But I think we've gotten through the comments, so let's do some Guess the Coaster. So, I think mostly everyone in here at this point already knows how to play, if you haven't already. I will be coming up with a coaster on RCDB. It will be a recognizable one. Don't worry, we're not doing, well, like a coaster that like coaster enthusiasts would know, but we're not doing random wacky worms and things of that sort. And you'll ask yes or no questions in the chat to try to figure out what the coaster is. You have unlimited attempts to try to guess the coaster. First person to guess it gets a point. Winner will be decided who guesses the most, and a tiebreaker, the one who guesses it most recently, will be the winner. We're not doing it, but I did get the Spinning Jesus roller coaster on RCDB, so that's kind of funny. The actual name is Mine Train at Foreigner Street, but that's kind of funny, to be honest. Not gonna do that because I mean, probably a little too obscure for this, but it was kind of a good one to shout out. I do have my actual coaster though. We're gonna do 8 rounds, so that's the number we're doing. So 8 rounds, and so I have my coaster. So start guessing away. We will do that. Alrighty. So. And actually I can take this down now, so. And I think that's the last we're gonna need of the slides, so I think we're chilling. Is the coaster blue? It is not. Not really in any shape or form as far as I can think of. Ooh, does the track have a single individual color or 2 colors or more? The track is a singular color. I thought the question was actually slightly different. But that is what it is. It is not in Europe. It is in the US, but it is under 100 feet tall. So is it at one of the parks that got sold to Enchanted Parks today? No, it is not. Great question, though. I do love it. It is not a family coaster. So far we have a coaster in the U.S. under 100 feet tall, not part of the new Enchanted Parks Resort, not a family coaster. There is no animal in the name. Another good question. It is not on the West Coast, nor on the western side of okay, we already have the US, so it's on the eastern side of the US. It is from a European manufacturer, so we have a European manufactured thrill coaster that is under 100 feet tall. That again is not at an Enchanted Park, does not have an animal in the name. It's not at a Six Flags park, and this park has never been in a Six Flags chain, because keeping track of all that now is going to be a headache and a half. Been an interesting past few years since Great America's Land was sold. Yeah, no, that was kind of looking back. It seems like kind of at the beginning of in a way of all this stuff, pretty nuts. And yet Great America is still open for now at least. So probably only another season after this though. It is not themed after an IP, but it does have inversions. So we do have a coaster under 100 feet with inversions on the eastern side of the U.S. built by a European manufacturer. And it is at a chain park. It is not Looping Star. It's not at Canesburg. It is not a Vekoma. So chain park, yes. So we have a chain park inverting coaster that's under 100 feet tall built by a European manufacturer. So that is where we are at this point. It is not a Schwarzkopf. It is not in Florida. Oh wow, what a snipe. Charged with Mystery Mine, which is the correct answer. Wow, what a get. Alright, so Charged is on board with a point. And we will move on to the next one. Alright, we do have our next coaster. That was a crazy snipe. I mean, to be fair, at that point, it's kind of like... There's not a ton of options, but, I mean, you still had a decent bit of Gerstlauer Eurofighters to burn through, so... And there's probably some other coasters I'm not thinking of that would also fit the bill, but yeah. There still were like other coasters that could have been burned through for sure. So that's still pretty crazy. This coaster was not located in a church. I forget the name of the one, but I don't think I would do that one if I ever got it because I can't even recall the name of it. It is not Bisbee Spiral Airship. The coaster is not orange, so not really orange in any shape or form. I'm pretty sure the trains aren't orange. Yeah, they don't really look orange, so I think we're good there. Oh yeah, Reaper Drop Right to Doom. Yep. No, that's it. That is not the answer to this, but that is the coaster. Is the part of the name? I don't believe so. Let me look at the logo. It's here. Oh, well, the is on the logo, but I'm not gonna lie, I don't know that I've ever heard anyone call it by like this name. So it is, but that might not be helpful. It is in the U.S. It is from a European manufacturer. It is not Screaming Eagle. Ooh. Let me get an updated picture just so I am right on this. Good question here. You could, so the track color is not like exactly, it's not exactly the same as the track, the support color, but it's not too far off. I mean, if you're saying like literally like the general colors, I guess you could say they're both the same, but they are like different like hues, I guess, of the same color if you could say that. So there is that. It's not at a Six Flags park. It is west of the Mississippi, so we are on the western side of the U.S. It's not Wildcat at Hershey Park. It's not Lightning Racer. This is a steel coaster. So far we have a steel U.S. coaster from a European manufacturer on the western side of the U.S. specifically. It is not Bizarro, but it is a B&M. So we do have a B&M coaster. And it's at a chain park. So we do have, but not at Six Flags. So we do have a B&M coaster at a chain park on the western side of the U.S. that the track color is not exactly the same as the supports, but it's pretty close. Or well, it's not. It's close-ish. It is not Silver Bullet. It's not Batman the Ride. It is not Emperor. So again, western side of the U.S. for this one. Not that that's been an issue. All the guesses have aligned with that. So again, B&M, Chain Park, west side of the U.S. Track and support color. You could say it's like the same general color, but they're pretty different hues. So you have that. Let's see. I don't know if chat is just not updating on StreamYard or if everyone's stumped. I'm gonna look on my phone real quick. This is not at a Six Flags park. This is not Patriot at California's Great America. So it's not at a Six Flags park, and I can also guarantee you this park was never part of the Six Flags chain, which again, now having to keep that all track of all that is gonna be a headache, but I can guarantee you that this was never a part of that. It's not Wildfire at Silver Dollar City. Yeah, this is interesting that it's I guess I'm not particularly surprised it's taking that long, but like oh, and there we go. Civilian Satellite with the great guess there. Great White at SeaWorld San Antonio is the correct answer. So Civilian Satellite is on the board as we end round 2 of 8. That round took longer than I expected. Ooh. We do have our next coaster. It'll be a little more tricky than the previous ones. Although maybe not. This is gonna be a very alright, let's roll with it. Let's see what happens. Red Ride. Well, let's how does one explain this? Part of it is red. So part of the track is red. Let's explain that way. This coaster is in the US. It is from a European manufacturer. It is over 100 feet tall. It is not an Intamin. It is they're straight across. No funky seating here. As far as I know, yeah, it's all straight across. This coaster is defunct. Yes. So that'll probably help. So this coaster is defunct. It is not any of these because all of these are still open. If it was Accelerator, that'd be crazy. I said it was not an Intamin, right? Is there a colon in the name? I gotta look through. As far as I'm aware, this ride never had a name with that had a colon in the name. So I'm gonna say no to that. This is at a Six Flags park. It did go defunct after 2010. Yes, it did. Although, boy. It is not Dragon Challenge. It's not a B&M. Which, if it was, that would make it a lot easier. But it's not a B&M. So, again, we have a defunct coaster. Went fully defunct after 2010. Over 100 feet tall. In the Six Flags chain. And it is a Schwartz Schwarzkopf. It is not Top Thrill Dragster, actually. So this coaster is indeed a Schwarzkopf. There's, yeah, this is gonna be fascinating to see how this goes. And Civilian Satellite has it. I would have accepted a million answers. That certainly is one of them. It is Zonga at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom, also Texas Tornado and Taz's Texas Tornado at Six Flags Astro World, also Thriller at Gronalund, and Tsunami at its last stop in Mexico. So, yeah, that is the correct answer. Civilian Satellite is on the board with a second, or not on the board, now has a second point. And then we will move on to our next coaster. I do have it. Guess away. This is round 4 of 8. You never heard of that ride. Yeah, it is pretty crazy looking Schwarzkopf coaster. I would recommend checking out some footage or POV of it. It's been a little while, but it was pretty neat looking. This coaster is not currently I don't think it's ever had brown tracker support, so I'm going to say no to that. This coaster has been repainted. Yep. Has had a few different color schemes over the years. So actually, yeah, the defunct part, it wasn't there in the 2010s. The coaster went defunct at the park in Mexico past 2010. So that was kind of the weird part of answering those questions. It was gone from Discovery Kingdom, I think, in 04, if I'm correct. This coaster is over 100 feet tall. So just to get back to this one, we have a coaster that was repainted, that is in the US, that is over 100 feet tall, and it is from a European manufacturer, but it is not wooden, so we do have a steel coaster. Repainted, so it's not nitro then. That would be correct. It is not nitro. It does have inversions. It is not Medusa. It was built before 2000. So there's that. It is on the eastern side of the US. So we have that. It's not Accelerator. So far we have a East US steel coaster that's over 100 feet tall by a European manufacturer with inversions. It is not an Arrow. It is not a B&M. And not Six Flags. Well, it is actually at a Six Flags park. So, a current Six Flags park. Which means a little bit more now. Although, I mean, technically the parks that were sold are still current. But it is not Superman the Ride. It is not from Intamin. It is not Dominator. So we do have a Six Flags coaster built before 2000 on the eastern side of the US with inversions that has gotten a repaint in its history where the colors did change. It is not Riddler Revenge at Six Flags New England. It does have more than 3 inversions. It is not Ninja at Six Flags St. Louis, nor is it Boomerang at Six Flags St. Louis. It is from Vekoma, so we do have a Vekoma coaster. It is not Viper at Darien Lake, not Medusa. So far we have a Vekoma coaster with more than 3 inversions. And there it is. Coaster Evan. Got it. Blue Hawk at Six Flags Over Georgia. The funny thing is, if Charge just said Ninja, I would have given it because that it was a previous name of Blue Hawk. But because you specified it was St. Louis, couldn't give it to you. So, yeah, that one's kind of funny. So Coaster Evan is on the board as we are halfway through the rounds. And I will get my next coaster. All right, here we go. All right, guess away. Now you're going to be as unspecific as possible. To be, I mean, yeah, I guess that's a fair point because yeah, that's I think a fair point. Is the coaster yellow? I would say no, it is not. It is not Bisbee's Spiral Airship. It is not in the U.S. and it is not from a European manufacturer. So, it is not a launch coaster. I wouldn't the track. I wouldn't really say it has 2 or more colors. Like, not... Yeah, no. So far, we have a coaster outside of the US that is not from a European manufacturer. It is not a clone. This is a one-of-one layout. When Blue Hawk was Ninja, it would put you in concussion protocol. It is not Hakuge, but it is a wooden coaster. So we do have a wooden coaster outside the US, which is not nothing. That could be something to work with. It is not Zadra, however it is in Europe, so we do have a wooden coaster in Europe. It is not Robin Hood, not Untamed. Ooh, wow, okay, the chat just updated fast. Not Loop Guru, not Grand National, not Wicked, not Wodon, not Big Dipper, but Civilian Satellite got it. It is Wickerman at Alton Towers, so Civilian Satellite now has 3 points, which at this point means unless... Oh wait, actually no, that's not... Charged and Coaster Evan still can win it outright if they get 3 straight points. Technically, someone could get 3 straight points right now and win it. But Civilian Satellite is in a very good spot to win this right now. So I feel bad because I wonder if Frontier Coasters meant to say Wickerman, but I mean, Wicked is like Wicked at Lagoon. So I couldn't really give that if that was the case. So now we go into round 6. We do have our next coaster. Guess away. I think for the most part, y'all are getting pretty lucky. Like these outside of Zonga, and even that one is, as far as like kind of a weird coaster, not that bad. Coasters tonight have been pretty like pretty darn well known and gettable. This coaster is indeed white, so we do have that. It is not wooden, so it is a steel coaster that is white. Is it? It's not in the U.S. It's not on the East Coast, but it is in a region that has the word East in it, so I'll give you that. Not in Europe, but it is in Asia, so I think that'll probably help out a little bit. It is from a European manufacturer. It is over 100 feet tall. It is not Max Force. It is not Falcon's Flight. It is not Eastern Europe. So we have a steel coaster in Asia that is white, that is over 100 feet tall. That has something, the region it is in has the word East in it. So, it is not Dodonpa. It is not in China. It's not Hyperia. It's not in Indonesia. It is not in Taiwan. It is not in Japan. It is not South Korea. I think, It's not in East Asia, as in like I think most of the countries you're gonna associate. This is not considered part of that. So by that default, this is in the Middle East. I'll just say that much to avoid confusion at this point. So we're in the Middle East, and we got a coaster over 100 feet tall that is steel and white. It is not on Easter Island. That would be quite something if it was. It is in the UAE. Oh shoot, I dropped the cap. I already said it wasn't Falcon's Flight, but Charged got it. It is Formula Rossa at Ferrari World Abu Dhabi is the correct answer. So Charged has a second point as we head into round 7 of 8. So at this point, pretty much only those who have scored can win, but of course everyone can still participate. Just saying that as far as those who are trying to win, only if you are on the board. So that would be Civilian Satellite, with another point would clinch. Charged could also get either a point or 2 points, depending on what happens. And then Coaster Evan, if you get 2 in a row, could be the winner. So there you go. I do have my next coaster. Guess away. RCDB is being goofy. Like, I ain't trying to like be weird, but the RCDB has been interesting tonight, to say the least. It is not Bisbee's Spiral Airship. This coaster is not black. It is from a European manufacturer. It is over 100 feet tall, and it is in the US. So we do have a US coaster over 100 feet tall from a European manufacturer. Let's see. And it is not wooden, so we do have a steel coaster. Is the track color a primary color between red, yellow, or blue? It is not. However, I would say the supports are like, you could say is a shade of blue. So I'll give you that. This is at a Six Flags park and a current one, not from B&M. This coaster manufacturer is not from Germany, so it is not relocated. It is an Intamin, and it is built after 2000. So we have a Six Flags coaster built after 2000, over 100 feet tall, from Intamin. I think that's about it. Yeah. It is not Orion. It is not Pantherian. Frontier Coasters got it. It's King Ka. I can't believe that, like, I think I got like a random kiddie coaster and then it spit out King Ka, which I'm just like, after Formula Rossa is insane. RCDB is really going wild today as far as like giving like some of the easiest. Well, King Ka is weird now because it's defunct now, so, but some of the like just easier ones. Ooh, okay. So at this point, for anyone who can win, Charge still can win. If you get this last point, you will be the winner. Any other result, Civilian Satellite wins. That's what's on the line. Everyone can still participate. I do have my last coaster. I can tell you this one will be more difficult than the last two, for whatever that's worth. So guess away. Yeah, rest in peace to King Ka. You're number 3 overall. Long live the king. Yeah, it feels like it's still with us. Oh man, that statement's funny. This coaster is not pink, as far as I'm aware. It's not in Japan. It is not in Europe. It is under 100 feet tall. Not sure that I would have guessed based on... I don't know if that's what I would have guessed, but it is under 100 feet tall. It is not in Canada. It's not in Asia. It's not a family coaster. It is not from a German manufacturer, and it is not indoors. So all we have is that this coaster is 100 feet tall. It's a thrilling coaster despite that. It's not in Europe, Canada, or Asia. I have not ridden it, no. So I have not ridden it. So no help there. But it is in the U.S., so we do have a U.S. Coaster under 100 feet tall, not from a German manufacturer. It is not SpongeBob Rock Bottom Plunge, and it is not at a Six Flags park. This park has not been in Six Flags ownership, to my understanding, at any point. So I'm going to say it probably has not been. It is not Tantrum. It is not in Ohio. Not Twisted Cyclone. Not Wicked Cyclone. Yes, it has had the same name its entire life, so no like renames and stuff here. Not Outlaw and not Cyclone either. So what? So we have a wooden coaster because I forgot if I read that, but yeah, it's not a steal. So we got a wooden coaster in the U.S. That is thrilling. Under 100 feet tall, not from a German manufacturer, not a Six Flags coaster. It was built after 2000. It is in Georgia, so that might be helpful. So we have a wooden coaster under 100 feet tall, built after 2000. It is in Georgia, not at a Six Flags park. So it's not American Thunder, not Phoenix. Coaster Evan got it. Cheetah. There you go. Cheetah at Wild Adventures. So Coaster Evan has a second point, which by default will also crown our winner. not Cannonball. Because that thing is old. I just realized, why do I still have this discussion? Okay. My bad, we have the ticker changed finally. Not that it matters that much. But our quiz winner for tonight is Civilian Satellite with 3 points. Congratulations. Shout out to Charged and Coaster Evan for also getting 2 points, and Frontier Coasters for also getting on the board. But that's going to do it for our Guess the Coaster game. We will do a final Q&A and buy or sell. Obviously tonight we've talked a lot about the Enchanted parks and just the EPR park sale of the Six Flags parks going over to EPR parks. So of course, if there's any questions or thoughts that are related to that, those are welcome. But at this point, we can also just, talk about anything. So I will probably make this a shorter one. I'll probably take questions that go until we'll do 10:20 EST, and then I'll probably wrap up from there. So that is going to be the plan. So appreciate those of you who've been watching. I was legitimately concerned that this might be like a no turnout kind of live stream, being I put this out a few hours beforehand. And it was very impromptu, and it was I would have to look back, but I don't think I've done a coaster time like this where it's just yeah, I'm just gonna do it. But I mean, happy to see we had a lot of people in here at different points. I know earlier that we had, I think, some new faces as well. So that was great to see. So happy to see y'all come out tonight, and definitely is good. This was kind of a test also to kind of see if this is something this could work. So I guess if there's some crazy news thing, I could potentially do this again. So um, we'll mention that, because obviously this was not planned that I was gonna do a stream this quick. I kind of mentioned it last stream, but saw this news and I was like, you know what? Let's do something a little different. So and also, of course, huge shout out to uh, uh, Jack from Justice League Battle for Metropolis Expert, along with Lindsay from History and Leisure for coming on as guests to share their thoughts also in very short notice. So that is obviously also awesome as well. Let's see, but already see you charged. Good to see you here. No way, because like I think Six Flags America, like they're gonna, like, again, I expect that land to be sold for quite a bit. So I don't think Six Flags America would have been spared. That's a park that they're like, okay, land's valuable. We'll see how exactly valuable it is, but I don't think it would have been spared, like, at all. And also, who knows how long this has been in the works for. So although I don't know that it's something that's been like that long. So I will say probably not. I wouldn't. If I were a Six Flags America home parker, I would just not really look at this and think, what if? Because I really don't think that's reality. Buy or sell, Japan will finally enter a new coaster era. So let's look at their new projects coming up. We do have that GCI coaster that's going to Greenland. That very interesting coaster, just because it's like out, and GCI's take on like the out and back. Very interesting looking layout. So that's cool. Kind of crazy that we like already know the name and layout and everything. It's opening in 2028, so that's kind of funny. Let's see what's under construction right now. Let's see. So you do have Space Mountain at Tokyo Disneyland. That's a pretty big one. That is, can't undersell that. That's a big one. Yeah, you got the GCI at Greenland, so that's pretty good. Apparently, okay, I don't even know what that is, and it was listed as a 2025 opening. There's no information on it, so I'm just gonna move past whatever that thing is. Oh yeah, Legoland Japan is getting a mock spinner as well, so that's kind of nice. And then as far as new coasters that have opened recently, let's kind of look at that. Not really a whole lot, to be honest. Yeah, no, it's actually been a little bit since they've really gotten much of anything. Yeah, I mean, Minecart Madness in 2024, and Zocon in 23, and then like besides that, it's pretty small list. Like Venus GP got relocated. Like, okay, so the next few years are definitely a lot. I didn't even think about it, but yeah, no, compared to what they had gotten, like, the first half of this decade, the second half of this decade is looking pretty good. And I think we could probably potentially see another Fuji Q coaster, maybe a Nagashima Spa Land coaster before the end of this decade. I don't know if you can call it a new coaster era, but like I will like buy the idea that like we're gonna get some there's gonna be some nice stuff to look forward to, like this second half of the 2020s. I mean, you already have I mean, yeah, I know the mock spinner isn't like crazy, but like seriously, like kind of look back at what we were like talking about the first half of this decade. It's not really anything too crazy. So, but then Space Mountain and the GCI Woody, those are two of the bigger hitters of the decade, like pretty easily. Because yeah, first half Minecart Madness, Zocon, Venus GP relocation, Lipovit and Rocket Luna. I guess you got GP racers if you want to count that. Like you know that. Yeah, I not really anything that like I'm over the moon about or anything. Beware the curse of Astro World. Raging Cajun, who's getting it? I have a lot of stuff to catch up on the news, thanks to all this delaying it. As far as like posting it on the Insta. I know that there's previously been Great Adventure rumors. I know also the flying scooters also got removed, so that's fascinating. Some people, I'll still buy a little bit into the Great Adventure rumors. I don't know that I fully do, but I'll do it. And I know people have said, well, why would they do that? They have Dark Knight. Great America had Dark Knight while they had Raging Cajun for 5 years. I think they could potentially add Raging Cajun for a bit and potentially maybe remove it a little further down the line. But they need more rides right now. I think the Flyers would be a great get for them if they could get it. But I think you could throw Raging Cajun somewhere and kind of do that. Like, yeah, the boardwalk area needs stuff, so why not? And heck, I mean, is it really that big of I don't think it's that big of a deal that they have Dark Knight in that. So I'm still gonna go Great Adventure just because there's been a little bit of smoke there. If not, I think most likely it just kind of gets sold out of chain. And at that point, like maybe I don't know if it could go on a traveling circuit, but maybe we could see that. Maybe some other park just kind of buys it, picks it up, like maybe an independent or something. There's some options there, but I'm gonna go with Great Adventure just because there's at least been a little bit of smoke with that. So, don't know if I talked about it last stream, but did Poke Park affect the overall crowds at Yomiuri for you? I don't think it did that much. It was kind of hard to tell, but it was busy. But the reason it was busy was more to do with the 3 p.m. ticket, and I think there were a lot of students that like had gotten out of school. I think that was the primary reason it was busy, and the Jewel Illumination event. I don't think I don't think Poke Park Kanto actually actually increased the crowds like that much compared to what I would have seen otherwise. So that's kind of what I thought of that. So, or what I experienced. Yeah, I know Beto Carrero World. I mean, it doesn't matter, right? Because like, I mean, the people over there are still hyped, but it is kind of crazy how much they got shafted today in the news. Because I mean, they're building like this massive like SpongeBob land that's like, I mean, well, we already knew it was like stupid expensive, but like insanely expensive new Intamin launch coaster with like 18 airtime moments, like bunch of launches. Like, it's gonna probably be awesome. I don't know if we have a layout for it. I mean, I kind of was like, I'll get to that like tomorrow. I'll look into that more a little bit. But good shout out there. What an exciting addition for that park and for Latin America in general. Well, probably Brazil just because Latin America is huge. But still, point stands. And Southern Hemisphere, most expensive coaster in Southern Hemisphere. Oh my gosh, it's 4,600 feet long almost. Yeah, this thing's gonna go crazy. I don't know if we have a layout of it, but I want to see that. That's exciting. But will Hopi Hari get something in response? Let's look at the history of these two parks, because I also need where are they in relation to each other? Because if they're pretty far away, like probably not. Just because it's like, I mean, what, like, is it really worth? So I will get to the Fiesta Texas question because I also want to answer that even though I haven't been keeping like super tight tabs on the rumors. I'm just kind of going off of what I had kind of heard previously, and I'm not sure if that's outdated or not. But I'll get to that in a second. So let's pull it up on the map here, Beto Carrero World, because I know where Hopi Hari is. I know that's pretty close to Sao Paulo. Yeah, let's see. It's pretty darn far away, at least looking at it on the map. Let's pull up some directions. Because like they're literally building Cacao Park. Like it's gonna be pretty close to Hope. Actually, if anything, I think Hopi Hari might have to build stuff because Cacao Park is you know, that's happening. That's being built, and it's pretty close by there. So if you were to ask me that, I think they will, but it's not because of Beto Carrero World. Because yeah, I'm looking there. It's an 8-hour drive. It's 640 kilometers away. They're not gonna care about that. But let's put in Cacao Park here. I don't know if it even is gonna show up yet. Okay, it looks like it is. Yeah, it's within like an hour. So that 100% I think is going to drive Hopi Hari to do something, at least I would expect. I don't know a ton about like who's operating them, although the park hasn't, I'm just looking at it, they haven't added a new coaster since literally the year they opened. They had a 10 inversion coaster that was in storage, and they just, oh, that ended up becoming sick at Flamingo Land. You know, I'm still gonna buy it. I think they'll do something. I think you kind of have to. I mean, yeah, you got to do something. So I'll buy it, but not for the Beto Carrero reason. Even though timing wise, it's gonna line up pretty well with that. So, like, I'll buy it, but like for a different reason. It's not in response, but they will do something, I think, in the near future because of that. Let's see. I'll look at park fans real quick on the forums for Fiesta Texas, see if there's anything new there that I haven't, like, you know, picked up as far as like the rumors go. Just to see if there's anything there. Because I'm sure there's people that are like, you know, really digging deep into the teasers. I'm still of the opinion this is going to be a family launch coaster. I mean, unless I see something that, you know, is is otherwise, I think we're getting a family launch. Yeah, I think like a Vekoma could be possible. I know that some people I know that like people want a hyper. I would be pretty surprised if we see that. Again, I'm thinking family launch coaster. So, and it looks like most the stuff on Park Fans is people are kind of thinking similar now looking at it. But yeah, family launch. I think a launch coaster of some sort, but I think family launch. Some people are saying the sliding tracks could be like a switch track. That would line up with family launch. So, yep. And I know there's been conversation about that as far as like, some people have said like, would you really be teasing it that much if it was for a family coaster? But I think that's like I don't think that's a very sound argument, because I mean I think for Fiesta Texas, and honestly a lot of these parks that are, you know, actually investing in like a significant family coaster, that can be like, you know, one of your like biggest investments, like in most impactful. So I don't think that would be overhyping something if it was a family launch coaster. I think that could be an excellent addition for Fiesta Texas and a very popular attraction. So yeah, I'm gonna stick with the family launch. That's what I thought going in, and nothing I'm seeing is making me change my mind. So, let's see. Have I heard anything new coming to Hershey Park in 2027? It's been kind of quiet, I feel like, on that front. Uh, I'm curious. I, again, haven't been, like, too locked in on kind of the rumors for those projects other like than like just kind of general stuff. I'll just kind of pop in and be like, okay, is anything going on? Yeah, I don't yeah, and then now I'm looking at the forums. There's nothing there, it looks like. So, um maybe we're looking beyond 27, but maybe there also is something coming in 2027. Who knows? Um yeah. I'm also still of the opinion when they do get something, I think a family launch could still very much be on the table for them too. Um, as I know it was rumored on Screamscape, but I do like the logic of it as well. I have like no opinion. I like well, okay, no opinion is harsh. It's a cute ride. I do love the front car, like the lead car of the Bluey coaster at Alton Towers. I'm not, in tune with Bluey. I know it's super popular. I know a lot of people like it. I especially like even people that like aren't like like little children or have kids. Although I know certainly a lot of people who have kids also who they watch the show with their kids. So very popular show overall. I mean as far as like I don't really have any big takeaways from it. Like it's a Zero Force coaster. Should be pretty popular at Alton Towers. I expect that the kids are gonna enjoy it quite a bit. Just because it'll be like a good family coaster and it has Bluey attached to it. So I think it should be a nice success there. And certainly I hope it is. For Alton Towers, I don't really have any other like takeaways from it though. If I'm being honest. I also am not like that in tune to like what other updates are coming to the area. That's just not a project I've looked at that hard. But I mean, seems like a good addition, and I hope that a lot of people go out to ride it, and it is a popular ride for years to come. So think it's sound in that way. The Myrtle Beach Raptor, I do find it's like it's a custom layout, and it's like it comes out. It's like okay, it has an extra airtime hill, um, and that's mostly it. I mean, it's still cool though. I actually do like that they did add the extra airtime hill. By the way, like I'm not trying to bash on it. I actually did like that change when I saw it. I'm like okay. Because one of my complaints with the prototype Raptors is like I think they kind of end on a weak note, but I think adding an extra hill is like okay, that's nice. I like that. Um, but yeah, I think it's gonna be a really nice addition for Family Kingdom. I think this 1-2 punch is gonna be like sick, super sick for like a beachside park, like a park with that is on the smaller side. This is gonna be sick. Like I cannot wait. And there's a lot of and I've heard a lot of praise for Swamp Fox. I think Swamp Fox is one of those coasters that I think is like a sneaky like a bucket list coaster for me. Uh, for sure, just from what I've heard about it. And I've heard some really fantastic reviews for it. So the fact that they're also getting an RMC Raptor to complement, that is fantastic. So uh, big fan of it. And again, I hope that for Family Kingdom, it ends up being something that brings a lot of people in. So, and this is also the perfect kind of park for like an RMC Raptor to like for one of these RMC Raptors to go to. We've come full circle where it's like okay, these are like for smaller parks. And I think like FECs and things of that sort. And then we got our first view at like Fiesta Texas and Great America. Now we're kind of coming full circle with it being added here. So love it, absolutely love it. For the people who live over there too, you're kind of in a bit of a not a complete coaster desert, but it's a pretty far drive from anything. So I think that's also great as well. I do expect to ride Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift this year. It's supposed to open in the summer. I probably will not try to ride it like when it, immediately opens. Um, I actually like going. I think I prefer to do Universal kind of like in the fall. I was actually kind of hoping it would open in spring because I'm like I probably would like to do it then too, but fall works. I will probably go try to ride it in fall, on a like like weekday something like that if I can get it to work out. Yeah, I would be pretty surprised if I don't get out to it just because I mean like that might be the best coaster in California. Like it's probably gonna be top three, so or four, I guess, because I pulled the top three in pretty high regard. So we'll say top four. But I mean it could be one. Even if it's like two or what. I mean if it's a top four, top five coaster in California, like I'm gonna do my absolute best to ride it, especially now that like in previous years when like a big new coaster opened in California when I was younger, like, I didn't have, like, either I was too young to drive or, like, I didn't have a car and all that, or the freedom that I have had in more recent years. So, this is going to be something that I will do my absolute best to try to ride it this year. So, I do expect that I will ride it this year. Can't say the same for Galactic Coaster. It does look great. Actually, does look better than expected. So much so that like I'm like, okay, if I'm back in San Diego, next time I'm back there, I kind of want to go there now. Well, that and I also want to rewrite like the dark rides and such. But Galactic Coaster also deserves a shout out. That looks pretty sick. Like blew away my expectations for what I thought it was gonna be going in. But San Diego's a pretty far drive from me, so that's kind of like that would be like outer edge if like something really exciting were to go there. But Galactic Coaster, that looks pretty cool too. We'll give a shout out also if you have Legoland in Florida. You obviously have that as well. I guess I thought I went like way over my limit or whatever it was, but it's okay. Looks like this will probably be the last question. I guess I'll take another one or two if any come in. But any thoughts at Ravens at Falcons in 2026? We don't have the schedule yet, so I don't know when it is. Well, because no one does. I know that we got a game in Spain. I forget if it was announced who we were facing. I assume that's not the Ravens game. Yeah, the schedule, I usually kind of look at that later, like once it's announced, but obviously the opponents are all out. So I will have to, I'll just kind of look over that, but obviously that's a big game theoretically. I think really kind of depends on, what time of the year it is. Like if it's the beginning of the season that we're taking on the Ravens, although the Ravens have an entirely new regime, so that's kind of something to work with. But, Jesse Minter having previously been in the organization is gonna, I think, help a lot as far as, like, making things so it's not, like, too crazy, like, big of an adjustment. Offense is definitely gonna have an adjustment, though, with the new OC. But even still, like, Falcons are, like, an entirely new regime. I don't know. It sounds like Penix will be ready by regular season, but we'll see. If it's early in the season, I think the Ravens are gonna like probably straight steamroll. Later in the year, I think the Falcons could make it a game. We also have to see how free agency plays out and all that. I think there's a chance the Falcons, and this has been kind of discussed on the podcast that I listen to, and some of the like insiders have been in tune to this. There's a potential that this year is like not a year where the team is trying to try to make the playoffs. This could be kind of a just 1 year reset and then really kind of go for it in 2027 once we kind of know if Penix is someone we want to roll with, and we have like more cap space and everything, because the team is a little, the cap situation is a little tight right now. Penix Penix is a massive unknown. James Pierce just went full Grand Theft Auto, and what the heck? Who knows what's gonna happen with him? I mean, I personally, if I were in the organization, I would let the legal situation play out, and assuming that the facts are, what has been reported, I think he's probably gone. If for some reason the team wants to trade for him, I'd be for it, but there's probably no chance. Yeah, that obviously that was really a disappointing situation for such a promising young player. Haven't really gone into that, but yeah, that is obviously, you hate to see that, just for a lot of reasons. But yeah, I don't have particularly high expectations for the Falcons right now, so I guess long story short, I expect the Ravens will probably win no matter what. It's kind of up to the Falcons if they can make it into a game. But, crazy things happen. Upsets, of course, happen. So, and then sometimes teams just perform a lot better or a lot worse than you expect. So, it's still a long ways out from being able to really tell who's going to win that game. But, yeah. Ravens at Falcons. I think you mean the Ravens at Holiday World. Oh, what? We got Raven at Holiday World versus like Falcons Flight at Six Flags Qiddiya or something. I mean, there's a million Falcon coasters though. No, actually, there's not that many. Yeah, you got Falcon at the B&M Wing, and you got the Eurofighter. So, but if we're talking Falcons Flight versus Raven at Holiday World, I love Raven, but I think we know what coaster is probably better. Let's see. I think this will be the last one. Any thoughts? Or no, wrong thing. Overall, would I net this as a positive or negative for the amusement industry? Or is it a yet to be seen thing? I think it's a yet to be seen. There's just no way to know. I think for Six Flags, I would have a pretty hard time believing this isn't a positive for them, just because, I mean, people have been talking about this, and they've been talking about it, like they need to cut down and be able to, put like good investment into the parks they actually want to focus on. Like yes, it is possible that these parks that were sold off, it is worse for them. But like, what was the upside in like keeping them if the chain very clearly was not interested in investing in them at a high rate? Though it's not to say that they weren't investing in them and making improvements. Was happening, as you could see from what Jack was saying earlier. But I mean, still, just, like for the other parks, it still would have been weighing them down, I think. So I think this makes it more manageable. I still think that Six Flags can get some work done as far as like kind of cutting out some other properties, the EPR, like the own parks, like the two dry parks they have there, plus like the 4 water parks, and there's a few other water parks that they have like also that they also like operate, that I think might be able to get out of if they want to. I think there's still a little bit more work to be done, but I think it's, for Six Flags, I think this is going to be a very positive thing. Though someone pointed out, kind of weird that they introduced the regional passes, and it's like, okay, cool, you're gonna have all these parks to go to this first year, and yeah, by the way, you can't go to a decent amount of these anymore next year. So that's gonna be. I'm curious if there's gonna be any issues with that. Probably not anything that's like too big of a deal, but I'm sure there's gonna be. For the people who work in the customer services and all that, that's potentially not going to be a fun time like next year if you have people who are still under the impression their pass works at a park only to find out it doesn't. So that, I could see that happening. Obviously, feel for the people who are going to have to deal with it ahead of time, just because not really a winning situation for anybody there. But so that kind of sucks. But for Six Flags, think overall a win. for these other parks, I think there's a chance this could be a win. Also, a chance this could be pretty bad. But I like to be optimistic, especially on the Enchanted parks end. Heck, I mean, even people were optimistic for LeBron the Bar Solo. Why not? Let's be optimistic. Let's hope they can make some much needed improvements and give it some much needed love under a chain where it can be more of the focus. So, or ownership where it can be more of the focus. So, I would love to see that. Yeah, and I think the other thing is kind of like if you're in these with these parks, it's kind of like at least for now, yes, there's a lot of pessimism, but I think other people there is like actual hope because it's like you don't know what's going to happen. I think with Six Flags it had become kind of pretty clear that like these parks were just not gonna be of that much interest as far as like major investments. Although as far I don't know that expecting like big ride investments how realistic that is for these parks either, to be fair. So it's kind of tough, but I think that yeah, I think it's definitely I can understand it from the standpoint of like being at these like local to these parks, like wanting for a change of scenery. So at least for Darien Lake and Frontier City, as long as they don't move on quite yet and even like take a little bit, maybe they do like wait it out a few years or just it would be crazy for them to run through the entire contract because like we're talking 2030s. But if for whatever reason they don't move on yet, I guess you'll at least have a little bit of a preview beginning next year as to what's going on. Although actually, kind of one note I wanted to mention, I do think that next year could be kind of a rough year for those new parks, just because I think it's a lot of stuff to figure out for this new chain. I think there are going to be growing pains, and I that's actually a point I probably should have mentioned earlier if you're local to these parks, but I think next year might not be like it might there might be some stuff that happens that is not pretty and some struggles that are not pleasant to watch or go through, but hopefully, you know, a few years in, you can start to see more of the promise. So, and we start to see that. So, want to kind of mention that. I think that's kind of a good warning to give, just in case if we do start to see some of that. I think some of the Six Flags St. Louis like potential like you know Justice League removal and maybe other ride removals could be something to keep an eye on, for sure. And then okay, I think this is gonna be the true last thing. Civilian Satellite, Frontier City was your home park, home Six Flags park, at 14 hours away. Then Worlds of Fun became your home Six Flags parks at 12 hours away, and now Frontier City is back. And who knows how long that's gonna last. Yeah, that is, man. I mean, I assume you probably because you do trips. You probably have the all park passport, or and a Six Flags season pass. But like, yeah, that is kind of crazy. Like, just funny, just being that far away. It just and that's like your home Six Flags park. It's kind of nuts. Um, but yeah, that is certainly wild. Um, for sure. I mean, gosh, within that radius, within the 12-hour radius, I got 4 of them. It'll eventually be 3 of them, and I'm not including the water park locations because I have even more. But yeah, I got four parks within that radius, and it's not even just within that radius. It's like within like a 4.5 hour radius. So definitely fortunate there. Even if I'm not like super close to any of them, I mean it's a lot closer than like 12 hours out. So yeah, the realities of just geography, I suppose. But yeah, that'll definitely be this whole situation will be an interesting one to monitor over the next few years. I don't think we'll have really any answers as far as on the Enchanted Park side of things, how this is gonna go. To should move to Maryland. Oh man. That's true. Everything is around there. It's just funny because your home park also would have been changed. But yeah, no, you're right because you got Great Adventure, you got King's Dominion there as well. If you're talking outside of Six Flags, you got Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, Hershey Park. Within proximity to the Jersey parks, like the Jersey Shore parks. I'm sure there's a bunch of other places that are in close proximity as well that I'm neglecting. But yeah, it's pretty darn good. So, you lived in Philly before living in Wyoming. Yeah. So you did have that is also a pretty darn good area for the proximity. So, for Missouri folks, you get, yeah, Frontier City will be your home park. Yeah. I'd have to look at if you're in the northern part, if like maybe Great America's closer, but probably for majority, yeah, Frontier City is like your home park for now. So that's kind of crazy to think about. Oh yeah, and then also I didn't even mention it, but the fact that all the dry parks are like not really close to their other existing properties. I guess the exception being like, actually I would have to look at how far LaRonde is in relation to their other parks, but they're not particularly close and they don't really compete. So that's, I think, kind of another interesting note. But anyways, delayed ending and all that is going to wrap it up for tonight's stream. Again, can't thank you all enough for showing up for, like I said, a very impromptu stream, and for those of you who are watching afterwards, for watching the stream. So very much appreciate that. And well, I guess the next stream will hopefully be that new concept. Again, don't know if it'll be this month or April, but stay tuned for that. So I'll leave it on that note. With that being said, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time here on Coaster Hour. See you all.